welcome to Vigilant News, everybody. We have a special show for you today with a special guest, Madison Deschamps. Madison, say hi to everybody.
Hello, everybody.
So Ryan is not here, but he sends his love and his best wishes. I actually have a statement I'm going to be reading for him later in the show here, but we're going to do an amazing action-packed show. We're going to cover the SCOTUS decision that happened earlier today for Trump. He did get his immunity. We're going to talk about some things that Clarence Thomas shared in response to that SCOTUS hearing in relation to the January 6th legal case that Jack Smith is attempting to put forward. We've got the debate, of course, to talk about, some deeper analysis on that I've been putting together in my Substack, and a whole bunch of other things and some fun, cool videos that you guys will enjoy. So welcome to the show. How's it going, everybody? So if you haven't already done so, go ahead and like the video, hit thumbs up on the Rumble video. Also, don't forget, you can go to vigilant.news. You can find the show notes for today. You can also find the book of the month in there. Our sponsor, of course, is Scent Nutrition, who helps us bring this show to life every week. And you can find all the links that we're going to talk about here. And Maddie's actually got a special little segment prepared for us as well. It should be pretty interesting. I think you guys are going to like it.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, well, usually me and Ryan do like a, hey, how's it going? So let's do a little like banter. I think we should do that. So Maddie, we had a great time with the DJ Tea Party a couple weeks ago, and you were expressing your interest in, coming on because Ryan's not here. He's trying to take care of his mother and all these kind of things. So you're going to help us out, help the show out, and help your darling husband out as well by coming onto the show. Is that right?
Yes, exactly.
So tell us a little bit about like what are you excited about for the show?
Well, I tend to hang out in the chat if I'm available. And so I always like being in the chat with all the good people, and I think it'll be fun to be on camera. I had a lot of fun with the DJT show. I found that it was a pretty enjoyable experience, and unfortunately, Ryan won't be here, so it would be a lot more fun if it was the three of us together. But when I heard that Ryan wasn't available, I figured, hey, I had so much fun on the DJT show. Let me be your special guest. So I'm very excited.
Awesome. Okay, great. Excellent. Yeah, and Maddie's got, I don't know if I want to blow your surprise, but you've got some cool stuff you've been working on behind the scenes, so I'll let you disclose that at your leisure, but I think you guys are going to be surprised or delighted about what Maddie's been working on when she decides to tell you about it. So... Right, exactly. Okay, so let's get into, here, let me share my screen. I'm going to talk about, let's start with the SCOTUS decision, because that decision is pretty big. I know a lot of you have been basically like following that on your own. I certainly have been. And where is it here? There it is. So earlier today, I think it was around 10:30 or something like that, we had this. So you can go to vigilantnews.substack.com to check out the latest. And we have the headline reads, this week, oh, actually, this is from last week. What am I doing? I don't know why the new ones aren't popping up here. That's okay. Let's see. Man, I could have sworn maybe I put that. Hold on one second, everybody. Technical difficulties. Let me just find that here. Oh, I think I grabbed the wrong links. That's why. Okay. There it is. All right, so Trump won SCOTUS immunity, says ruling is a big win for Constitution and democracy. On Monday, the Supreme Court issued a 6-3 decision determining that former presidents such as Trump are immune from criminal prosecution for conduct involving official acts during their tenure in office. However, they are not immune from unofficial acts. So there's a little diciness as to, well, what exactly do they mean by that? Because, as many of you know, Obama literally murdered an American with a drone strike during his tenure. Bush lied to the American people through Colin Powell and said that there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq when there wasn't actually any weapons of mass destruction. And that's just the stuff we know about. Quite frankly, I think there's probably way more shenanigans happening behind the scenes with these presidents than we like to think. So what exactly constitutes an official act or an unofficial act? I'm not sure. Let's keep reading here. The Democrats hope that Jack Smith's case would disintegrate. Excuse me. The Democrats hope that Jack Smith's J6 case would disintegrate in the wake of this ruling is probably gone. So the full decision you can read here. So basically, as what we're going to discover, and Clarence Thomas had a bunch of say on this, there's pretty much no hope for the Jack Smith case at this point. Let me switch over to, oh, there we go. I just want to also say hello, Lulu, Curtis. We got PJ Dub in the house, PJ Morgan. So how's it going, everybody? Thanks, y'all, for tuning in. So the panic in D.C. continues for both Biden's failures in the debate and the likely prosecution of Trump administration will levy against deep state actors. Here we have a clip from, I believe it was today.
Supreme Court has just handed down its decision on presidential immunity. Again, it's a mixed bag decision. There's some presidential immunity. There's presidential immunity for official acts, not for unofficial acts. But the way that they've worded it, as we've been discussing at this table and with our guests, is that it does seem to lean heavily toward Donald Trump's arguments here that he can do what he wants to do as president of the United States. Let's bring in NBC's Ken Delaney outside of the Supreme Court. Ken, what do you have?
Yeah, Katie, I think the analysis here has been spot on. You know, the decision goes a long way to say that the president is not above the law and that private acts, unofficial acts, are not immune. But if you look at what the implications for Jack Smith's indictment of former President Trump, they appear to be dire, because there's a whole section in the indictment about Donald Trump's efforts to enlist the Justice Department to allegedly falsely proclaim that there was fraud in the election, write letters to states. That is completely out, according to this decision. And then you get to his conversations with Vice President Mike Pence, which are a key part of the indictment. This decision says that there's a presumption that those are immune, but that prosecutors could seek to rebut that in the lower courts. And then it also says that his public statements, the public statements of any president, are largely immune. And so the speech at the ellipse, any social media, the tweets, the Truth Social posts by Donald Trump about January 6th, that is largely out of this case. What is possibly remaining in the case are Donald Trump's and his allies' conversations with state officials, with private parties in their efforts to get state officials to conduct investigations into bogus allegations of fraud. And what this decision says is that all that has to go back down to the district judge, who has to scrutinize in close detail every single one of these allegations and decide what constitutes private conduct, what could possibly be official acts. And then, of course, that's appealable. And so the idea that this case could go to trial before the election is completely out the window. That's not happening. And in fact, it could take a year or more to sort through this stuff. Even if Donald Trump doesn't win the election and this case still goes forward, this Supreme Court decision greatly complicates this major indictment of Donald Trump by the special counsel, Katie.
So there you go. That's the MSNBC report. So MSDNC happening. And, I want to play just a little bit at the beginning, because I think what we heard in the beginning was like a line that he was fed, because you remember the mainstream media is all about framing. It's all about using their words and the stories and the concepts that get pushed through them and the intelligence apparatus that feeds them to control perception, control our opinions, these kind of things. So let's take a look again at the first few seconds.
Supreme Court has just handed down its decision. There's some presidential that they've worded it, as we've been discussing as president of the United States.
Yeah, Katie, I think the analysis here has been spot on. You know, the decision goes a long way to say that the president is not above the law. And
the decision goes a long way to say the president is not above the law. I'm not exactly sure how it does that, because doesn't really sound like that's the case necessarily. But you heard about this a few hours ago. What are some of your thoughts, if you have any?
Well, my first thought was, in general, excitement, because all of this is, all of these sham trials are exhausting and obvious. we're kind of in a banana republic situation, which I'm not a fan of personally. I think that in general, it's a good sign, but I think a lot of this is controlled anyways. It's all kind of a show, in my opinion. So I'm positive neutral on this situation,
Yeah.
and we'll see where the next set of trials and shenanigans and all of that goes.
Okay. Yeah, I think the coverage is pretty interesting because the Jack Smith case is a case that they've been wanting to push through for a long time. They were going to charge Trump with some amount of collusion or participation in the January 6th insurrection that never was, of course. The evidence about the fact that Trump never actually participated in anything, there was nothing that actually even happened, that Nancy Pelosi and Mayor Bowser was the one who didn't accept his offer of National Guard troops. There's all those things that basically paint a picture that there was really never a case to begin with, but in the typical fashion that the deep state likes to do, they were trying to create a case, a bomb, a crime that didn't actually exist. And they were using the indictments to do it because, as we know, the people who don't know the details of the case, the people who just take the mainstream media's word for it, say kind of what that guy said that I did a story on, who Phil, what's his name? Dr. Phil. Dr. Phil did an interview with Trump. He subsequently had a panel with some people who watched the interview, and there was this guy walked up. I can't remember his name. It was like Hugh or something like that. And he's like, I don't know if I feel okay about a man who's been indicted so many times for president. And the reason he has that concern is because he doesn't know like what the details of the situation are. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, well, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like Hillary Clinton has done way, way, way worse things and been given a slap on the wrist many times, same with Joe Biden. So if the public only really knew what was happening and how obviously this is all a sham, I think someone would never make that comment. But a lot of people are in the normie category and they just don't pay attention. They listen to their nightly news or their CNN and they just think, oh, well, I don't know. That doesn't seem all that great that he has so much legal trouble.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like we have family members who just gobble up the mainstream media, and they don't. It's funny because I remember when I was a kid that some of these family members would be like the first people to call out BS when they saw it, at least BS that they became aware of. And yet we have one of the most obvious cases of mainstream media government BS crimes against the people, and they're just like totally not participating. So it's pretty crazy. All right, so let's keep going. This is what Bloomberg had to say. Justices voting 6-3 along ideological lines said a federal appeals court was too categorical in rejecting Trump's immunity arguments, ruling for the first time that former presidents are shielded from prosecution for some official acts taken in office. The majority ordered the lower courts to revisit the case to decide the extent of the allegations that are off limits to prosecution. So, from what I understand from this, and I'm hardly super familiar with every detail of this situation, but this is the first time the Supreme Court has actually made an explicit decision saying, well, this is a situation where presidential immunity is actually going to be enforced. Now, in previous cases, or in coverage that Ryan and I did a couple weeks ago, we had reviewed the testimony, or I guess it's not testimony, it's the statements made to the Supreme Court in relation to this case that they just made a decision on, where the person who was speaking on behalf of Jack Smith was basically saying that, that there's good reason to say that we should be doing something, but he was trying to walk like an almost impossibly hard line, because we were talking about before, we got definitely shady things happen in past presidents that we know of for sure. Bush basically lied to Congress and or through Colin Powell, I should say, and Obama, we know he had openly killed somebody with a drone strike. So what is the line exactly? What is an official act? What isn't an official act? And they're kind of kicking that down to the lower court to make that decision. So it should be interesting. So we're not done with this situation yet. There's still a lot that could happen. And there's some what's the right word here? There's some the Patriot movie, or the Q operation, as we like to say here, has a whole side to this story that we've been talking about for a while that I don't want to get into. But before we do, I want to keep reading some of the like official commentary.
Real quick, one of the things that it says when it says the justices voting 6-3 along ideological lines.
Right.
They just had to throw that in there.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Like, well, which I mean, I was funny you mentioned that because I wanted to say something about that too. Like, why would this be an ideological situation? Either he did commit the crime, or he either did participate in this January 6th situation, or he didn't. And either is immune or he didn't. Why there would be this like political divide between Democrat and conservative, or progressive and conservative, seems kind of like a disqualifying act on the part of a justice of the Supreme Court. It's supposed to be like neutral, like they're about the rule of law. It doesn't matter what political side is happening, and yet this happens. So.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you could throw the word ideological on any decision they make if that's
Right.
what they're qualifying it as.
Exactly. So let us know what you guys think in the comments. I'm going to keep going with this review here. Jonathan Turley, a constitutional law professor, observes that the current issue is whether official acts are considered such. He also notes that the ruling will further delay the lower court proceedings, but Trump will be required to contend that his actions are within these navigational beacons. So what he's basically saying there is that, that we still don't know what the line actually is. Like, what is an official act? What isn't an official act? This isn't something that Trump's just going to be able to walk away from. He still has to deal with this situation, but it'll most likely be after the election when all this stuff happens.
Sure.
So, all right. So let's see. He also says, note this language. So he highlights some language. Whenever the president and vice president discuss their official responsibilities, they engage in official conduct. Presiding over the January 6th certification proceedings, at which members of Congress count the electoral votes, is a constitutional and statutory duty of the vice president. And then they cite Article 2, Section 1, Clause 3, Amendment 12. So they cite some various sections as to where that is discussed in the Constitution. The indictment's allegations that Trump attempted to pressure the vice president to take particular acts in connection with his role at the certification proceeding thus involves official conduct, and Trump is at least presumptively immune from prosecution for such conduct. So in my mind, this is something where, okay, the question is do we have good reason to suspect there might have been fraud in the 2020 election? Because that's what it comes down to, right? Trump and Pence and the people who thought there was fraud, Giuliani, basically anybody who spent any time looking at the mountains of witness testimony saying that there was issues during the election, which there was tons of it. They make a very compelling case. We had more votes happening in some counties and some districts than there were people registered to vote. And there were multiple videos of people coming out, running ballots through multiple times, things like this. So that suggests that there is good reason, and the question that I've always had is like, well, how much cheating is enough cheating? Like, in a sports game, a single act that happens outside of a sports game is like a judge's or a ref's right there to throw foul and disqualify that player, that point, kick that person out. And yet with our own elections, arguably the most important rule of law game that we ever have in human history, which is our election system with respect to our government, we're just willing to let all sorts of stuff get passed and just keep the ball moving forward with the transition of power.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, the 2016 election, they claimed up, right, down, and left that everything was Russian collusion, that it was stolen. If they had found even a shred of evidence close to what we have on the 2020 election and how unfair that one was, they would have ripped Trump out of office as soon as they possibly could. Right. But they didn't, and yet it was okay for them for 4 years plus to say, oh, this election was stolen. But Trump even hinting at it being not fair and that it should be looked into and that things should be held off was now suddenly this egregious act, and it's insurrection. I mean, it's just a ridiculous double standard. It's so maddening that it's so obvious, and yet, for whatever reason, nothing's being done about that. Right.
Yeah. It's a good point you bring up, because I was thinking, why would they do this? And I think it's because from the deep state's perspective, like if you've been cheating on like every election, basically in U.S. history, which I think is the case, then you don't really want to stop somebody you are accusing of cheating, which is Donald Trump, because then that would cause the whole cheating apparatus to get exposed, examined, identified, dealt with, and the rules to be reinforced, right?
Right.
So what you'd want to do is you want to have your cake and eat it too as much as possible. You'd want to get rid of Trump, say he's a cheater, and then keep everything moving as if, oh, well, pay no attention here, don't look behind the curtain, people.
Right.
But they didn't want that, and I think they knew. They're like, well, if we push for this, if we try to prove that Trump cheated, one, we'd have to prove that Trump cheated. Then we're going to have to get all those little details out in the public. We're going to have to, in doing so, we're going to train the public what to look for. Where right now, they don't know anything. They don't know that we're cheating, like literally in every election in ways that they are so totally unaware of. And this is what I'm going to be covering in my book. Like, there's so much cheating happening at so many different levels that most of the public has no clue about how bad it is. Like, the vast majority of the public. So I think that's what Trump wanted to happen. I think this has all been a part of a long game scenario to talk about, like, the Q angle, the operation angle. You know, why would they not want, you know, to expose the cheating way back in 2016 or 2017 in the 2016 election? Well, it's because it was a much bigger issue here. And I think the bigger issue is that the people in government, elected officials, election officials, you name it, everybody that is involved in our government, especially when it comes to election, is so totally inept in what it actually takes to make sure that there's no cheating, that we have to get everybody really pissed off because, you know, it's kind of like, man, I can't remember the name of the movie, it just escaped me, but that's a movie where people don't really want to do anything until they get really pissed off and heated, and this is kind of like that situation, you know?
Okay.
So,
Not enough information for me to guess the movie.
It's
but
okay. I don't
good
expect
example.
So, all right. So let's continue looking at this story here. We have, all right, so I already read that. Then more of Jonathan Turley says, this question then comes whether the presumption of immunity is rebutted under the circumstances when the vice president presides over the January 6th certification proceeding. Well, yeah, so this is what we were getting to a moment ago. The election was, arguably, there was plenty of evidence. So in my mind, it's like, you know, if anybody with a pulse sees that there's fraud happening,
Right.
and you go to your elected official, like if I wanted to vote for Trump and I'm in the election, I'm in the place where ballot casting happens, right? And I'm like, hey, that guy cheated over there. Are they going to be like, well, you participated in the election, you wanted Trump to win, so your word doesn't count? You know, that's basically what they're kind of doing with Trump, is they're like, oh, well, because you actually have an interest in this election, you can't say anything. You can't actually point out cheating in any capacity, which is ridiculous.
It is so ridiculous.
So, all right, so let me continue this. So we have another ex-user, Sean Davis, saying, this is a key paragraph from the decision, taking into account these competing considerations, the court concludes that the separation of powers principles explicated in the court's precedent necessitate at least a presumptive immunity from criminal prosecution for the president's acts within the outer perimeter of his official responsibility, which is basically saying they're alluding to the fact that there's a line somewhere between official and unofficial acts, but they haven't quite figured that out yet. Such an immunity is required to safeguard the independence and effective functioning of the executive branch and to enable the president to carry out his constitutional duties without undue caution. At minimum, the president must be immune from prosecution for an official act unless the government can show that applying a criminal prohibition to that act would pose no dangers of intrusion on the authority and functions of the executive branch. I mean, I don't know enough to say, like, with expert opinion, all the different facets at play here, but just reading what I have over the past few days and weeks and, you know, over the past, like, couple years or so, trying to figure all this stuff out, it is a super hazy line. I don't know if there is a line that can be, like, drawn to figure out where this line actually is, especially when they want to let Pence off the hook and all these election officials off the hook. And I think this is kind of the bigger play. Did you want to say something?
Nope, I agree.
You know, so they're trying to do almost the impossible, which is like, all right, we're going to not prosecute Trump. we're also going to scold him and shame him for having anything to say about the election that it was fraudulent, even though anybody with a pulse who actually looked at this thing, who still has a functioning neocortex, is going to look at this and say, hey, wait a minute, there's some shady stuff happening here. But we're just going to let every other elected official off the hook. So it's like, again, in-kind action deserves in-kind response. So in other words, if somebody who says, hey, there was election fraud, is scolded for doing so, then you would think the opposite, which is not calling out election fraud would get you scolded, right? And we have election officials going all the way up to the vice president, because he's an election official. Anybody was elected and put into a position of power or appointed as a position of power to safeguard the rights of the American people is an official, in my opinion, when it comes to the Constitution. The Constitution is pretty clear on that. And just as a standard of law, if we can go even beyond the Constitution, if you've got people, if I ask you to watch over my kid's sports game and make sure there's no cheating, and you're a parent and you don't do that, right? And cheating happens right in front of you, and you're just like, oh, hold on, I got to check my Twitter real quick. Then, you're culpable, right?
Absolutely. But it helps their little Jimmy out, so they didn't see it.
Right, exactly.
That actually reminds me, there was a Super Bowl, I don't know, maybe 3-4 years ago, maybe less. I don't really keep track anymore, but it was back when I used to watch football a lot. And the team that had won, it had come out after they had won that they were illegal in the sense of football rules. They were illegally using semi-deflated footballs from their team. I don't really know how that benefits one team and not the other, but that team had smuggled those footballs in, and that helped them win, apparently, and nothing was ever done about it. They didn't get any penalties. They kept their win. I think they did it again the next year, and they won again. I think it was back when the Patriots were winning back-to-back. But don't hold me to those exact details, but I know for sure it had to do with cheating and deflated footballs. And it was one of those things where at these highest standards, this is a national football game where there's a lot of money being invested as far as betting, other things like that. That is the direct equivalent to our presidential election. And in both cases, there was severe cheating and collusion, and somebody had brought it to the public, and I'm guessing that person didn't keep their job, but nothing happened. So
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Lulu says it was the New England Patriots.
Okay.
Thank you, Lulu, the resident sports football expert here. I'm woefully inadequate when it comes to these things. So, Tom Brady, what did she say here?
Is not the GOAT.
Yeah, Tom Brady's not the GOAT, yeah.
Nope.
So,
greatest cheater of all time, the G-coat.
Right, yeah, exactly. So, so when it comes to this, election stuff, I just rant and rave about all this stuff all day long because I'm so passionate about this subject. But I don't think we're done the story yet. And I think just like, I forget, Trump, I think it was Trump earlier last week, released some story about how the election is going to be studied in some way. So I know one of the biggest issues that people have been pissed off about is that, here we are in 2024, 4 years later, and there's been not a shred of retribution or even reconciliation. Maybe that's a better word. There's not a shred of reconciliation of hey, cheating happened. Before we go and vote in another election, let's go and take a look at this last one. And I'm like, yeah, 100%. But my response to that is, well, if your choice is I'm not going to play the game until this other game gets fixed, then we might hand the game to the bad guys in the process. And I know you guys don't do that, but...
Yeah, well, I remember in the drops, it had said something like, we have, it alluded basically to the fact that the elections were being watched as far as cheating, and all of the information of cheating was being totally tracked and would be used to be, prosecuted later and totally revealed for what it was. So I'm still waiting on that. I'm thinking, I thought that there was no way Biden was going to make it into office up until the moment that they aired that fake staged inauguration that obviously was not happening live. I was like, something's going to happen. There's no way they're going to let him walk through those White House doors. And sure enough, he did. even though no one opened them for him, which was hilarious.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, it was pretty great. He had to awkwardly let himself into the White House. Normally the Marines let them in, I'm pretty sure. But regardless, I thought for sure something was going to happen a lot sooner. Obviously, that is not the case. But if Trump manages to get into office this time around, which I'm really, really hoping happens, then I think the field would be laid. The ability for that kind of information to become public will have its time to be shown. So that's what I'm hoping on. That's more of a hope and a faith thing than I have evidence to prove this, but that's what I'm hoping will happen. Because I know somebody has been tracking all of the information on cheating. Somebody knows. I mean, the NSA has all of our information, all internet traffic ever. Clearly, there's enough information somewhere within these intelligence agencies to prove definitively that cheating happened. So I think it's just a matter of time.
100%. Yeah, if they can know how often you go to the bathroom, they can know whether or not cheating happened in the election. So, all right, so let's finish this story here. All right, so Justice Clarence Thomas in Trump v. U.S. is hugely significant. He questions whether Special Counsel Jack Smith's office is constitutional. So I'm going to actually save this section for another article, but I just couldn't finish covering the story without showing you what Trump had to say about this. And Trump says on Truth Social, this was earlier today at 9:41 a.m., big win for our Constitution and democracy. Proud to be an American. Amen, Trump. All right. So before we move on to our next story, we're going to talk about Ascent Nutrition, one of our show sponsors. So Ascent Nutrition, they've produced some amazing products. I released an article the other day about, you can actually go to my Substack, justintheshops.substack.com, or the old URL works too, justinstillness.substack.com. And I wrote an article about something where I talk about how I think I might have actually been exposed to a biowarfare agent. Now, I know that sounds kind of sensational, and believe me, I get it, but considering how much biowarfare nonsense we've probably been dealing with over the years, I actually don't know if it is sensational. My personal opinion is that we probably have been dealing with biowarfare agents literally all our lives, and we don't know it. If we open the scope to consider things like our food, our the drugs that we use, makeup, food dyes, plastics. I mean, the plastics in our clothes right now, they degrade over 60 years, and then where do you think all this microplastic comes from? So I think actually the biowarfare is like something that we're just swimming in and have been for a long time. And so you weren't here, baby, but when I got back from the Reawaken America tour,
right,
I told you about it. I had that.
I got the tail end of your sickness.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay. And so it was unlike any sickness I've ever felt. Like it was like this, frankly, like I stayed up all night doing drugs or something like that, which I've done before, so I can know what that feels like. It's been a while, to be honest with you, but when I was in college, I had my party days, and so it had that type of a feeling. It felt more like I was exposed to a chemical, something like that. So we use this stuff, Agarikon. Agarikon is this stuff right here. It's actually an AI image, but you know what I'm saying. It looks basically like that. And what the Agarikon is, it was studied actually by the Defense Department because it's supposed to be able to negate biowarfare agents. Think about it. You're a cabal. You're a sick, twisted globalist that wants to reduce human population and have pandemics at the ready to do all sorts of scheming and plotting and conning. And so you want to make sure that when you create your super biowarfare agent, that something like, dandelions aren't going to screw it all up on you. So you study what will not only avoid, or let me rephrase, you study what causes the pathogen to get neutralized, which is Agarikon in this case, or you study things that don't necessarily cause it. And you make sure only those things that aren't going to mess with your biowarfare agent are going to make it out into drugstores. Well, it turns out Agarikon actually neutralizes this thing. So I tried it the other day, a couple of weeks ago now. I got home. I felt that weird itchiness in my nose, which is a telltale sign that I'm getting sick. I put it in some water. I gargled with it, and it was pretty remarkable. It was like instantly it froze. Wow. Yeah, it was crazy. So I did that basically twice a day for about 4 or 5 days. And normally when I'd feel what I was feeling that day, I'd feel like sniffles and things like this for at least a couple days, if not a couple weeks. And it like halted it. It didn't make it go completely away. It was like still there, and I still had this weird like stuffy nose feeling, even though I didn't have a stuffy nose, which is another reason makes me think it was some kind of weird biowarfare thing, because I didn't have a sore throat, I didn't get a fever, I didn't get normal things that you get when you're sick. It was like this, just part of me was like exposed to a chemical. So anyway, the Agarikon really worked, and I strongly suggest you guys try the Agarikon. You can go, if you're watching the show live, or after the fact, go to the link in the description on the Rumble channel. You also can go to my Substack, Just Into Shops, or justinstillness.substack.com, and you can find this article here, and in there is a link to the Agarikon. And you can use DJT Party to save 10% off. You can also save 10% by getting a subscription, and you'll also get free shipping. So as long as you get that free subscription going, you'll get free shipping, and you'll get that 10% off. So it's a pretty good deal.
Is this a mushroom that guy discovered and his house got raided because of it?
That's the story. Yeah, some people are like, that's not true. I don't know what to believe, but that's the story.
Because if that is true, that's pretty, telling about how powerful this is. Have you told that story before?
I have told the story. You want to tell it though?
Okay. Well, yeah. Just what I remember vaguely is that this man was studying the health effects of this mushroom, and some intelligence agency raided his house because he had. They were studying this very thing, but they were trying to suppress the information, and they didn't want him to make this public because obviously they use warfare against us. So I thought that was an interesting story. It might just be a tall tale. But if that's true, which in this world it would not surprise me, that is pretty interesting. And I saw the effect it had on you. Are we going back to what we were talking about? Because there's a comment I wanted to highlight about the whole Tom Brady thing.
Oh, yeah? Okay. Well, before you do that, I want you to tell people about the soap. Because the Scent Nutrition has a soap, and I know you love it. So go ahead and tell them about it. I love
the soap. Yeah, they used my review in the official advertising because I wrote such a glowing review, and it was honest from my heart. I'm not the kind of person to put in a fake review. We got a bunch of samples of the spruce soap, and it says that it's it's not just a regular soap bar. You can use it as a shampoo bar. You can use it as a face bar. It's gentle enough, but also effective enough for all of those places. And I had been hearing really good things about shampoo bars and conditioner bars for a long time. And so I wanted to try. I literally was just about to go out and buy a shampoo bar for the first time. And here it is at our house. And we need to try it out. And so I tried it on my hair. And it says to use it twice. I would try doing it the official way first, where you shampoo, you rinse, you lather again, you rinse. I did it once because I have dry, curly hair. I didn't want it to be, I don't produce a lot of oil in my hair, so I didn't really need to strip a lot of oils from it. So I just did one lather and rinse, and then a conditioner bar that I had bought. And I've tried this with conditioner that I had beforehand. It was literally astonishing how soft my hair was, and the least frizzy it had ever been post-wash in my life. Because I had that natural dry curl, I avoid using harsh shampoos or anything like that. I will go a lot longer between shampooing, and sometimes I'll just do some water and conditioner to try to keep the moisture in my hair. And yeah, it was literally unbelievable. My hair was softer, it was shinier, it was so clean. Sometimes I get dandruff issues too, and it totally cleared that. It's not like I wouldn't say it's like a dandruff cure necessarily, but it cleared all of that buildup that I had in one wash. So this stuff is crazy. I also have sensitive skin too. I really like it as a facial cleanser. I don't use it all the time as a facial cleanser because the spruce can be a little burning to sensitive skin, but as far as a deep clean weekly face bar and then a shampoo bar, it is incredible. Like, seriously incredible. So my ladies out there, even the guys, but especially the ladies, you want soft, silky, shiny hair, I highly recommend.
That's right. Yeah. So check it out. Again, you can get it at Scent Nutrition. I'm glad you mentioned that because it's amazing soap. I love it. And yeah, and I'm pretty sure it protects the acid mantle too. So
oh, that makes sense.
We won't talk too much. We won't geek out too much about Ascent products, but
This is the soap show.
yeah, exactly, the soap show. So you had mentioned so there was a pretty, I don't know if it was intense. To be honest with you, I'm not familiar enough with the issues about the football thing to know whether it was. But you said you wanted to mention the football thing. And before I turn it over to you, how's it going, Cujo? Ball as well. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so PJW says, and yet we think Trump isn't guilty, yet Tom Brady, who won 5 rings, is a cheat. Tom supported Trump and is the GOAT. Well, I don't know if that logic is necessarily 100% like the perfect logic to assess the situation, because tons of people win even though they cheat, like a lot of presidents. I do think it is super interesting that he did come out and support Trump, and then now, and he is obviously an incredible football player, and then there's this attack on the New England Patriots, and someone saying that Deflategate was total BS. This is PJW, he said that earlier. So I think that's super interesting because I never heard that side of the story before. Here's another example of a normie hearing what is just shown in the news and not investigating it, because I'm not a big football fan. I don't care. I hear that, I'm like, yeah, it makes sense. That's me acting as somebody like that Hugh guy was for the Trump cases of like, oh, you just hear some bad stuff and you write the person off.
Right.
So I could have been that person in the situation. So it's a super interesting perspective to take that maybe he was being attacked for some reason because he's a rich, powerful man that supports Trump. Maybe
Right.
that is why Deflategate happened. Maybe it was totally BS and he's being attacked for being successful and patriotic and an upstanding man, just like Trump is being attacked. So interesting. I wanted to highlight that because I saw that. So thank you for informing me. I was not aware. I don't know whether it is true or not true, but it does fit. It does fit the pattern, that happens in this world. So.
Yeah, that's true. And apparently, where is it? I just clicked the wrong one. So PJ, I believe, where's that comment? Here we go. So PJ says she's a gal from Maine. So forgive us for misgendering you,
Oh,
PJ.
sorry.
Because I did that too. So. But yeah, anyway, great points, everybody. So we appreciate your support and your knowledge about all sorts of various things. Don't forget to hit thumbs up. Don't forget to check the comments. And what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to read that statement by Ryan. So Ryan has been, he's been having a hard couple months, guys. Like
Pray for him, please.
Yeah, seriously. Like he's been up there. As you guys know, he's been taking care of his mother for, I think May, is when he went up there. So he was only supposed to be gone for a few weeks, but her health has been declining significantly. And they just found out that she's got, I don't know how much he wants out there. So I'm just going to say they found out some things and she's not doing so great. So I'm going to read a statement he prepared to kind of, let you guys know how much he loves you and all that kind of stuff. He says, hey guys, sorry for the absence. My mother's situation has progressed to the point where she's no longer really capable of functioning on her own. We've been at the hospital in Alma, Michigan for the last few days, and if God wills it, we will be getting her settled back in her place today after some tests. There's no shortage of things I want to talk about on the show. How the political activists posing as journalists have all turned on Biden overnight. How Obama shamelessly intends to force his shambling husk of old man out into the public stage for another 4 years. The striking down of the Chevron doctrine, it's a big one. The Supreme Court granting Trump immunity. The information war is heating up big time right now, but sometimes it's the things in our immediate life that demand our attention, and right now I need to be here for my mother. I'm still working on scripts and Substacks, and I should be back in action soon on Vigilant News. In the meantime, please feel free to follow my socials and join my Telegram for the latest ramblings and artillery for meme warfare. So yeah, I'll pop his Telegram in the chat, y'all. Definitely go ahead and pop in there, and I think he's got a comment section set up on the Telegram. But
he also says, love you and miss you and keep fighting the good fight.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, Ryan is just an incredibly sweet person. I don't know how much that comes across on the show, but this man is very humble, very sweet. He's always thinking of others. He always puts others first, almost to a fault. And so the fact that his mother is like so ill she can barely take care of herself, and all he's thinking about is, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not there. It's just, if you're watching, Ryan, we love you. Take care of your family, take care of you. Don't worry about the news. Justin's obviously got it. I'm here to help. And yeah, we wish you a lot of comfort and ease in the situation, and screw the Vex. That's all I gotta say.
Exactly. Yeah. And Cujo also says prayers, and I'm sure everybody else is very supportive, as they have been in the past.
PJW.
So, yeah, PJW says that as well. So, and then Call Sign says, just wanted to drop some positivity bombs and hopes he's working. God bless. Have a great day. Back to work. So Cujo's off for now. And Crystal says she's been praying for him since I saw his post on Facebook the other day. Yeah, Facebook is a good place to stay in touch with him, too. We actually have a Vigilant News Facebook group, and I'm pretty sure he's active in there. I'm shamefully not as active in there as I should be, but, there's only so much for me to go around. So.
Yeah, you only recently got back on Facebook.
Right. All right, so let's continue here. We're actually chewing up more time than I thought. I thought we were going to breeze right through today for the show, but we're going... so I'm going to jump to this next story, which is basically about the same kind of thing, except it's Clarence Thomas's statements about the trial and some of the things that are going on there. So I'm going to read through some of that, and we'll have some discussion. So Clarence Thomas basically drew a hard line against Deep State and Jack Smith, and he won't abide corruption. This is the exact face he made when the decision came through. No, I'm just kidding. SCOTUS Justice Clarence Thomas questioned special counsels Jack Smith and his legal authority after the highest court in the land upheld Donald Trump's presidential immunity position. With a 6-3 decision on Monday, the Supreme Court upheld Trump's total immunity for his essential constitutional duties. The court ruled that for their official duties, former presidents are entitled to at least a presumption of immunity. So we already got through that. The D.C. case brought by Jack Smith against Trump is scheduled to reopen in the lower court before Judge Tanya Chutkan. According to Trump's attorneys, he's not subject to federal prosecution for any crimes he may have done while in office. That's a bold statement, but I think that's probably right. I mean, personally, I haven't talked a lot about this, but I think the concept of immunity is abhorrent, because if you're going to have a true rule of law, then the law has to apply to all equally, regardless of their position or station. That being said, and this is something the Founding Fathers were brilliant. If you read the Constitution, let me just go on for a little rant here. They're talking about what happens when the president doesn't sign a bill, or what happens when Congress is away. And so they're kind of painting the picture without saying it that the Founding Fathers is saying, we don't trust the people now and the people in the future to actually not be contemptuous of their duty. Mm-hmm. If you're in a truly rule of law society where everybody's above board, which is not like some grand, loyal, or glorious thing where heaven literally descends to earth, like people do this all the time. You have people who actually care about their position. They put their position of trust in their office at the highest level of standard and dedication. They're going to actually be there when you need them to. They're going to actually defend the people's rights. But they knew that that was not the case. They knew back then, just like today, that there was so much corruption, so much malfeasance, so many lazy, stupid idiots that didn't have a clue about how to actually occupy their office properly, that they needed to create safeguards within our government to make sure that the lazy dupes who only cared about themselves and having sex with hookers or whatever it was were going to get...
Worse.
Or worse. Yeah, exactly. Or worse, had some kind of check and balance on them. And so that's the reason why I think immunity could not exist in our current system. One day, I would like to live in a world where we don't have to bank on corruption as a facet of whether or not we're going to have a country or not. Because everybody, including the citizenry, cares so much about law, so much about their rights, so much about God's will, because that's where all this comes from. It's God's will and his design that give life to our country and the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence and all these beautiful things. And so when we as a people care about that so much so that we learn it just as much as the justices do, which it's not that hard. I mean, in a better world, it shouldn't take like 16 years and all this money to learn that stuff. You just learned it in school like anything else. Then we can actually hold our representatives accountable. We won't need immunity, but right now we need it. So, did you want to say anything?
I love your colorful language.
Yeah. Okay. Got to get a good rant in every once in a while. All right. So this is what Clarence Thomas had to say. This is from the Gateway Pundit. Clarence Thomas questioned Jack Smith's authority, and he said this. Let me make it a little bigger here. I write separately to highlight another way in which this prosecution may violate our constitutional structure. In this case, the Attorney General purported to appoint a private citizen as special counsel to prosecute a former president on behalf of the United States. But I am not aware that any office for the special counsel has been established by law, as the Constitution requires in Article 2. So what does he mean by that? Well, he's going to get into it here. By requiring that Congress create federal offices by law, the Constitution imposes an important check against the president. He cannot create an office at his pleasure. If there's no law establishing the office that the special counsel occupies, then he cannot proceed with his prosecution. A private citizen cannot criminally prosecute anyone, let alone a former president. So this is should probably do a whole show on just this little phrase here, established by law, because they say it a lot in the Constitution. And what do they mean by that? Well, when you hear law, established by law, I want you to just think agreement. When you actually have a functioning country, then people sit down to define what the truth is, to define what their values are, and then to create a law system, a system of agreements, terms, and conditions that then they agree to through a contract that then creates the authority of law. That's what that is. The Constitution is itself just a contractual document. The same basic concept is at work when you sign a contract to go work for somebody. You're agreeing to certain terms and conditions. Your boss doesn't have the power to tell you to let him sleep with your wife if he wants to. So there's certain things that people just can't do unless they're established by law, because our rights are our own. God gave us these unalienable rights, and the only way for us to pool those together to create an actual situation where somebody who's an office holder can prosecute a president to deprive them of their rights, or anyone for that matter, is through a process of law. Everybody has to agree to it, and that's what he's getting at here. He also says no former president has faced criminal prosecution for his acts while in office in the more than 200 years since the founding of our country, and that is so despite numerous past presidents taking actions that many would constitute crimes. So he's basically saying that there's plenty of good reason that we should be prosecuting presidents potentially, given what some of the allegations we've heard of past presidents are. And yet there's never happened before. Again, why is that the case? All of a sudden, the deep state that runs our legal system decided they gave a damn and wanted to actually prosecute supposed crimes. It just so happened that the crimes they say that this president committed, President Donald J. Trump, don't actually exist, and there's no merit to them whatsoever. So isn't that a little dubious? Continuing on, if this unprecedented prosecution is to proceed, it must be conducted by someone duly authorized to do so by the American people, meaning Jack Smith can't just be like, well, I'm a prosecutor and me and my buddies, we don't like what Trump did, so we're going to invent some laws and we're going to prosecute him, which is what's happened, by the way. They just invented a bunch of things that never actually happened. They changed the statute of limitations in the E. Jean Carroll case, something that had, like, the statute of limitations is 7 years. He supposedly raped her, which never happened as far as any evidence has been brought to bear to show, back in the 70s. So it's like almost 10 times as far as the statute of limitations happened, beyond 5 times. It's 35 years. And they were just like, well, we're just going to have a special dispensation. We're going to allow special cases for statute of limitations that have expired to come forward. We're going to prosecute them, but we're just going to have it expire after a year. Talk about shenanigans. That's like in the middle of a football game, changing the rules to allow the other team to score a point, but then not, and then changing the rules quickly back so that the opposing team can't use those same rules. It's that bad.
I work with kids. I see them do it all the time.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. I can imagine. Yeah, Maddie's a school teacher. What's the school again?
It's Bach to Rock. It's a music school. And then I teach preschool and kindergarten music as well. But maybe not for much longer, because I got a job offer to be a assistant director of the music school. So I might be taking that if I can talk them up on the salary. So
nice. All right. So let me just see how much more. Okay, so I'm going to skip to this section here. Thomas once again reiterated that a special prosecutor must be Senate confirmed. So when he says appointed by law, what does he mean? Well, basically it means that the people, so again, the rights come from the people, or let me rephrase, the rights come from God. God gives the people rights, and then the people create an office, or they create a trustee, as a technical term, who has their rights and says, okay, I'm going to take your rights through this agreement that we've created so that I can actually do this. And we're going to prosecute somebody who violates these specific rules that we enumerate or we spell out. And that's basically what has to happen. And through the process in our country, that happens with is the Senate and the Congress in general. So that's where this authority would have to come from. The Senate would have to say, hey, we're going to appoint a special counsel. They're going to have a discussion about it, which they could still do, by the way. We have a hijacked Congress as far as I'm concerned, so they still could do some shenanigans to prosecute Trump through Jack Smith, but we'll see what happens. So at this stage, as far as I can tell, the Jack Smith case is kind of dead in the water. There's still some things they could do, and no doubt they will try, but for as far as a PR, an optics point, Trump is basically off the hook. So
Sure.
All right. Let's see. Thanks, Paul, on YouTube. Appreciate it. He likes my rant. He likes me. He really likes me.
And Ascension Diaries is here.
Oh, no kidding.
I tried to pull it up on YouTube, and my chat is not working. Oh, there it goes. Now I was able to get one thing in, but it keeps flashing in and out of existence. So I didn't even realize we were live on YouTube until I saw that super chat.
Well, that's great.
So.
Well, hey, everybody. What's it? Blast from the past. That's it. Blast from the past. Much love to all you over in YouTube land and in the other infra battle that we're fighting right now. Though I don't know if you'd use that terminology, but anyway. So let's move on to. Let me make sure I get the right articles pulled up because I pulled up the wrong ones the last time. So hold on one second. Bada bing, bum bum bum. All right. So yeah, these are all the wrong articles. Let me pull up the right ones here. All right, so Obama secretly campaigns to get rid of Biden. So I'm going to quickly go through these, and then we'll kick it to you for your fabulous story, okay?
Okay.
All right. So Obama secretly campaigning to get rid of Biden. This is according to Tucker Carlson. And Tucker said this down here, but before we get to that, I'm going to actually, you know what, I should probably do this other one first. Let me go over a little campaign stuff. Did I put that in here? Yes, I did. All right, so I'm going to talk about the debate that happened last Thursday. I'm sure you guys have seen these clips, so I'm not going to play all of them. But I wrote a pretty extensive article the other day. I don't know how many words it is, probably somewhere in like the 5,000 range, something like that. So trying to lay out the backstory for some of this shenanigans that's been going on. And I lay out a pretty compelling case for a lot of different things. One of them is that Trump knows that Biden isn't Biden, in my opinion. Trump uses coded language. We live in a reality or a civilization, I should say, where coded language is all over the place for many different reasons. There's symbolism in movies, coded language. There's symbolism in the media. There's symbolism and coded language in the halls of government. It's everywhere. And the good guys use it as well. And there's a reason why, which I don't have time to get into. But if you wanted to know my case for that, you can click on this article. Trump knows Biden isn't Biden. You can look at that. So one of the interesting things that Trump said was that Trump accused Biden of being a Manchurian candidate. Now,
I love that part.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, talk about a coded message, right? Like, if you don't know what a Manchurian candidate is, a Manchurian candidate, I mean, they made two movies actually about it, which is basically that effectively like an MK Ultra CIA intelligence agency program to literally traumatize somebody to the point where they no longer have agency and they are a puppet of somebody else. That's what a Manchurian candidate is. And basically there's the story is that they can train these people. This is in the movie, mind you, and they can train people through these methods to be a sleeper. They don't even know they're a Manchurian candidate, and they see some signal, and then that activates them. They kind of it's like they have like a trance come over them, and they go kill somebody or execute somebody, something like that.
Yeah, like Zoolander.
Exactly, like Zoolander, yeah. So anyway, so let's take a listen for Trump talking about this.
Bishop, we now have the largest deficit in the history of our country under this guy. We have the largest deficit with China. He gets paid by China. He's a Manchurian candidate. He gets money from China. So I think he's afraid to deal with them or something. But do you notice he never took out my tariffs?
The person in his ear is like, shake your head, shake your head.
Exactly, yeah. And I didn't put any videos in here, but there's a pretty good compelling evidence that suggests that Biden might have been wearing an earpiece. He moved his head in a way that suggests like he was listening to things. He even like, he touched his ear in a way.
Like he's adjusting his ear.
Right.
Piece.
Exactly, so that happened. Like I said earlier, if you want to read about my argument for why Trump knows that Biden isn't the real Biden and that the real Biden likely either died or got taken off backstage somewhere back in 2019, you can read this article up here. Trump knows Biden isn't Biden. So what I wanted to do, let's see, I get into a lot of different things in this article. One of them is that we live in a world where because the general population has been mind controlled, I mean, you might be wondering like, well, if the good guys really exist and they supposedly kind of swooped in and took power back in 2017, which interestingly enough, it's funny that Ascension Diaries is here, but I don't know if you remember, I don't know if your real name's out there, so I'll just refer to you as Ascension Diaries, but there was a guy that we used to follow way back in the day. This is like 2015. I think he's been discredited now, but anyway, he was saying that, that Trump was actually a good guy. And this was back in like 2015, that Trump was working for the military, positive military, and he was going to come out and reveal. Back then it was all about like disclosure and secret technologies. Yeah. And so it turns out he might have been right the whole time, which is kind of crazy to think about. But so why is it that why are the good guys using PSYOPs? And I argue that they are using PSYOPs. And I think there's a compelling case to argue that's happening. It's because the general population has basically been so thoroughly mind controlled. I mean, anybody who's ever tried to talk to their family about anything truth related that doesn't congru with the official narrative, it's like, the NPC programming comes in and they just stop thinking. And that's part of the reason why. So we're going to skip to, this is a great clip of Morning Joe. So Morning Joe, he was saying some stuff about Biden that you might have seen some clips about how good he was, how incredibly sharp he was. And then literally like the day after, this is the second clip is directly after the debate. So within 12 hours after the debate, the same man is saying like totally something different. Now, what's interesting is that, these same people have been denying vehemently that Trump or that Biden had any issues at all. He was perfectly sharp, totally cogent, didn't crap his pants. Joe Biden wasn't his handler, all these different things, right? And yet in total lockstep, almost all of them, not all of them, but almost all of them start changing their story. And I would argue this is because it's a show and not necessarily like a white hat show. It might be. But at my point I'm arguing is I think there's like a black hat kind of operation happening. And then encased around that is a white hat operation where the white hats are actually using some of the black hats for their own purposes, kind of like a master chess game. All right, so let's take a look at this video.
But I undersold him when I said he was cogent. He's far beyond cogent. In fact, I think he's better than he's ever been. No. This is a battle for the future of American democracy. And now is a good time. In June, thank God. In June, and not October, in June, this is the last chance for Democrats to decide whether this man we've known and loved for a very long time is up to the task.
Oh, my God.
Isn't that hilarious?
So bad. He's better than cogent. He's the best he's ever been. All right, we have a chance. It's only June. Let's get him out.
Exactly. Oh man, that's hilarious. So Trump declares his win. Let's see. I just want to pull out. Okay, so panic in D.C. This is something that Q's mentioned several times. Well, there was like every headline was talking about panic in D.C. Is this the panic that they were talking about? I don't know. I think that the reference to panic in D.C. is like one of these phrases that is used to refer to multiple different things. And right now, it's used to refer to Biden.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, there was the drop from 4 years ago around the same time that was talking about change or batter coming. Why was she kept from announcing her run Was it so that she could be switched in last minute? And if Obama really has been the president in the basement controlling Biden this whole time, then how perfect would it be for his wife to come in?
Oh, yeah.
Or, his whatever to come in. Big Mike.
Yeah, Big Mike, right.
So we'll see. I think it's one of those things where it's like, obviously the Democrats don't have a lot going for them. So if they had released Michelle to run for president early, then there would be all this time to bring up bad information about her, or smear her name, be like, well, she doesn't have any experience in politics, or maybe where's the birth certificate on her? Same thing they did with Obama, except for she's probably a citizen. She's just a man. So, I don't know. It's one of those things where I think there's a lot of benefits to putting in the person last minute. Less chance for the public to gain a negative opinion of the person, and also for them to feel like, oh, we have a savior.
Right.
Because everybody else sucked. And they love her.
Exactly. Yeah.
My
Yes.
grandma would be over the moon. My grandma, I use her as an example all the time of the perfect, lockstep, watching the nightly news kind of non-aware person. No matter how much me or my mom try to tell her about what's going on, she's so blinded. And she's a really intelligent, really, really intelligent woman that, like you said with your family members, used to be pretty hip to what was going on in the world. And if she sees something that's wrong or evil, she will stand up for the right thing. But she's been so cognitively dissonant, unwilling to realize that things can be as corrupt or as bad as they actually are. And so she kind of blinds herself to a lot of things. She watches like ABC Nightly News, no like big networks, but I think that's just as bad, honestly. And sure enough, right after the debate, she's like, wow, I had no idea Biden was so cognitively declined. Yeah, that's what she said to my mom.
Oh,
and
wow.
my mom's like, I've been trying to tell you this for 4 years, and you're just now seeing it? Like,
Right.
it's so bad. It's so bad. And now she's like, oh, I'm so nervous. I want somebody else. And I don't think she really liked Biden to begin with, but she hated Trump because she was told to hate Trump.
Right.
It's just sad. It's sad. And she's like a lifelong Republican, too, that went liberal. Well, she says she's independent. I'm sorry. She's independent. She's a lifelong independent that's voted Republican up until Obama. And, yeah. I guess that's all I really have to say on it. It's just, she's the example of, like, whatever they want the main person, the normies to think. My grandma can be trusted to be right there biting along with the narrative. And it's really sad because she's so smart.
Right, exactly. Well, yeah. I have a few family members just like that too, and you know them. So we pray for them. Bless their heart, as they say.
Bless their heart. Sometimes you're so smart, you're dumb.
So I'm actually curious. So I think I'm going to start up a game, like a who's going to replace Joe Biden Deadpool game.
Oh, nice.
And so I want you guys to think about who you think is going to replace Joe Biden. Go ahead and let us know. Okay, so let's keep going through that article. Bada bing. So I wanted to play a couple of videos. So this is a highlights reel. I'm not going to play the whole thing. I'm sure you guys have seen it, but keep in mind, the mainstream media has been used over the past few years, as Maddie was just talking about, and everybody knows, to hide every single tiny little thing from their mind-controlled masses about the truth about Joe Biden. And all of a sudden, they start doing things like you're about to see in this clip here. I'm going to skip towards the end. I want you to tell me what you see at the very end.
The only reason I'm here is he's so bad as a president that I'm going to make America great again.
We're the envy of the world. Name me a single major country president who wouldn't trade places with the United States of America.
Look. They show Joe Biden moving Joe Biden off stage like he's ambling. Why would Politico do that? Politico. I mean, that's like globalist media 1.0, right? Right. Or, you know, the main globalist media outlet, or one of the top 5, something like that. And they just, whoops, sorry about that. We accidentally slipped in a clip of Joe Biden, like, being helped down off the stage like he's a senile old man. Well, it's because they're nuking the narrative. That's my opinion. That's the other thing I argue in this article is that this is what you're witnessing now is actually a trauma-based mind control psyop, because they've been getting people to stake their reputation, just like your grandmother, just like a few people we know, that, oh, no, Biden's perfectly fine. He's cogent, he's intelligent, he's smart, he's way better than Trump, blah, 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 blah. So people have stuck their whole reputation on this. Which means it's kind of like, discovering that your husband's been diddling little kids, or like, he's been stealing, embezzling from, his job, and it's going to trigger your personal embarrassment, social circuits in the limbic brain.
Right.
And that's exactly what it's designed to do. So now these same people who have been lied to by the mainstream media are going to be like, oh my God, I'm stressed out, I'm freaked out, I'm having like a trauma moment. Please give me the new programming that I can use to feel good about this. And they already are lining it up. They already are lining it up.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. Well, and I would just like to see them like say, what if they had all in lockstep and like, Biden obviously won the debate. He obviously won. That was so good. He is our man. Trump's such an a-hole. And I wonder how many people would have just gone along with it. Like, yeah, duh, Biden won. It's only because they're all in lockstep saying, oh, that was a pretty bad performance. I'm pretty embarrassed. I honestly, they've done so many deceptive things and so much gaslighting that I feel like majority of the people would have gone along with it if they hadn't, all in lockstep and like, oh, that sucked. Because there's been so many things to me that have been that blatantly obvious that they turn around and say the opposite. Like all of the debates of 2020, they weren't nearly that bad, but they were pretty bad. Right. I felt like, I'm biased, obviously. I think Trump won all of those debates, but they went along and said, oh, Biden did that. Biden's great. So I don't know. I feel like a lot of people would have shielded themselves. There's so much cognitive dissonance going along with it. It's only one more thing to be like, oh no, that was a great debate. Biden won. Biden did great.
Oh yeah. So it's the trauma's in full out right now. So all right, so let's keep going through this article here. So we got that was CNN. Let's see. I got a whole bunch of other clips that you guys can take a look at. So the campaign to start replace Joe Biden kicks in. We got that clip there, which we saw. Kamala Harris, I won't play it, but she's like, oh, well, we're going to support Joe Biden no matter what. We're going to, so if you think about it, there's like this whole web of sophisticated deception that's happening. Kamala Harris, in order to save her political career, in order to do what she's told by her deep state handlers, has to pretend like she's in full support of the president, because that's exactly what she should be doing. So that's exactly what she does in this clip, which you can watch in that article. Then we got Biden campaign official. He's not dropping out of the race. So Biden is going to do what I think they carefully orchestrated for him to do, which is to keep holding on to power, because my suspicion is that they're going to do something that makes it like an imminent threat. Now, keep in mind, this psyop isn't just for us. There are people who have been fed a line for years, whether they're in the military, they're high-level contractors, they're, parties overseas, all sorts of people that have been told Biden is the guy. And now it's them that are going to demand that Biden gets taken out. So I think there's going to be a lot of stuff that happens behind the scenes that we don't necessarily see. And that's what this theater that we're witnessing now is probably about. All right, so I'm going to switch to this other article now. I strongly suggest you guys take a look at this one here that I just was showing you. You can go to justindeshops.substack.com. It's going to get into a lot of cool stuff in there. So now we're going to get into this article here. Obama secretly campaigns to get rid of Joe Biden. So the Tucker, this is the articles that are coming out. New York Times had an article over the weekend saying it's time to consider replacing Joe Biden, something like that. So again, lockstep. I don't know where all of a sudden these agencies decided that it's time for Joe Biden to go. Here's some of the post-debate coverage.
Yes, we did. Every single person out here, and I just, the candidacy has fallen. Okay, man, I know you're speaking from your heart. I'm worried about the president. We should pray for the president. I think his advisors, I think the White House, and I think his family have a lot of explaining to do. to their party and to the American people.
All right, so there you go. There's a few other clips that I didn't put in this one that very clearly spelled it out. Like not Matt Wallace, Chris Wallace, the guy who Trump was debating as a moderator during the last Joe Biden debates, was describing it as a car wreck. And I've described in that article I was just talking about all the various hypnotic language that they use to induce a sense of palpable fear and trauma in the people who believe in the Democratic Party. So this is Tucker Carlson. From an unusually good source, Obama's tweets supporting Joe Biden was disingenuous. In private, Joe Biden is telling people Biden can't win, and he is therefore in favor of an open convention, which is the process by which they decide they're going to choose another candidate. Well, Biden will not say whom he supports, nor as of yesterday afternoon, he met personally with Biden to deliver the message. Relations between the Obamas and the Bidens have never been warm. At times, they have been hostile, but recently they've deteriorated further, mostly due to Jill Biden. In the hours and days after the debate, she kept her husband cloistered away from anyone who might convince him to drop out. Jill Biden is the driving force behind her husband's re-election campaign, just as she was in 2020 when other members of her family, including Biden's sister Val, considered him too impaired to run. The next generation of potential Democratic candidates understands all this as an opportunity and they're circling, particularly Gretchen Whitmer, who is promoting herself aggressively. Gretchen Whitmer. I always say Gretchen Whitmer, which is maybe more
That's
accurate.
appropriate.
But, yeah. So yeah, there you go. That's what's happening. Then we have Nancy Pelosi, who's doing the loyal thing and supporting Joe Biden and saying more drunk, inane ramblings. And here's a clip of that.
My people are very much Biden, Kamala Harris. And this is an opportunity for Joe Biden to go out there and show he has the stamina and the rest. And by the way, while the press, and for some reason they don't, there are healthcare professionals who think that Trump has dementia, that his connection, his thoughts do not go together.
She's seems certainly a bit drunk and incoherent, but
That's typical for her.
yeah, poor Nancy.
Nancy is totally sober, just like Joe Biden is totally sharp.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So there's that article. Let me see. I think I might have one more before we switch over to what you got, baby. Let's see. Panic in D.C. I already covered that. Okay, so we can't forget about this. So last week, something else happened. So this was a very busy week last week. Julian Assange was freed. He's been in Belmarsh prison since 2019. He's the founder of WikiLeaks, if you don't know. I'm sure all of you do. But basically, it happened similarly along the lines of a Q drop, not exactly on a Q drop date, but very close to it. So Julian Assange, he played a significant role in the 2016 election by publishing a series of emails from Hillary Clinton's campaign chairman John Podesta, which the mainstream media and Democratic political apparatus alleged were obtained by Russian hackers. The release of these emails in the weeks before the election significantly harmed Clinton's campaign. It is believed that this scandal helped secure Donald J. Trump's election as 45th president of the United States. So that's Julian Assange. So this is his wife talking about his release.
It's a whirlwind of emotions. I mean, I'm just elated. Frankly, it's just incredible. I don't know. Feels like it's not real.
Have you told the children that their father is going to be free and is going to be part of the family?
Not yet. All I told them was that there was a big surprise, and on the morning that we left, I told them we were heading to the airport, and we got on the plane, and I told them that we were going to visit our family, their cousin, their grandfather, and so on. And they still don't know. They've never seen him outside of Belmarsh. All their interactions with Julian have been in a single visitor's room inside Belmarsh prison. It's always been for a little more than an hour at a time. It's been very restrictive. He can't walk around. He can't go to the tuck shop. He wasn't able to go to the tuck shop and buy a chocolate or anything. You see, I still have to. I have to change my tenses now. It's been so long that I'm not used to talking about Julian free in the present.
Wow.
All right. Yeah. Isn't that nuts?
Yeah.
Can you imagine? Yeah. So big. That's a big situation. And let's see. Where is that drop? Okay. So here it is. On April 19th, 2018, we have this drop from Q, which one was it? Thought I had the number somewhere. It doesn't really matter, I guess. But that's SR connected to DNC, SR Seth Rich, MS-13, the people that supposedly killed him, which I'm not doubting that happened, but, we don't know for sure. Julian Assange, when or why did the Democrats push legal rep on family? And ETA June. So some people are suggesting this is like a 5-year delta, something like that. With these things, you can never know for sure. That's it. It was Q1195. I do a little analysis on this. I'll let you guys read this one as well. And Paul Flora has some cool things to say about this as well. So I'll go ahead and drop it there. I think that is basically it. Well, I'll just show you guys this article, and I'm going to pass the baton over here. So this article is one I put together because I don't know about you, but keeping track of all the names that Trump and Kash Patel and everybody have listed over the years isn't exactly easy for me to do. So I put together a big old list of some of the things. He's been talking about people getting arrested for a while now. I'm going to play this little clip. This should be pretty interesting.
It's been very exciting.
Yeah, exactly.
We have to begin mentioning these people every day. Congress has to impeach these people from ever holding government offices ever again. And anyone involved must be prosecuted in the next Trump administration, because we know Merrick Garland's not going to do it. But Congress, you can start taking some money from some of these government gangsters. I hope you'll start doing that soon.
All right, so there you go. So here is there's a bunch of deep state actors, including the media, have been talking about how terrified they are that Trump's going to, get into office and prosecute his political enemies, which is their fancy way of saying, like, oh, my God, he's a tyrant. He actually wants people who committed crimes to go to jail. So
that is a scary still shot of Rachel.
I know, right?
The next one is better.
Yeah, this was a little better. It's almost comedic, and this guy's just like, just get this over with already, will you? So yeah, there's 36 different actors or people. So I'm gonna let you guys read this. There's a whole bunch of different people. This is an article from the Federalist, where they get into all sorts of different people, what they did, what they're accused of, all sorts of stuff like that. So I suggest you familiarize yourself, because there's going to be a lot of discussion around these things. And you can go to my Substack, Justin Deschamps, substack.substack.com to check that out. All right. And with that, I think you sent me some stuff, right?
I did, yes.
Okay, let me pull that up here. And while we're doing that, do you want to give like a little preamble of...
Yeah, so my little feature story that I have is about Chrissy Teigen. I don't know if anyone has seen, but she recently was on a talk show where she's crying, talking about how beautiful and exciting it is that this abortion clinic that she had visited was, gives like hope to women, and abortions are so exciting, and she's tearing up thinking about how beautiful and moving this is. And so it was just a little deep dive on what she had said and going back into some of her past, which relates to her position on abortions and all of that. I am somebody who used to be pro-choice because I didn't really know much about it. I wasn't raised with any kind of spiritual or religious standard around it. I thought, what the mainstream media told me, which was, oh, it's just a clump of cells. It's not really a life yet. And it's the woman's right to choose what she wants to do with the thing that she created, because it's not really a baby yet. I now know that that is incorrect. I would definitively say that I am pro-life. I think that, given extreme circumstances like the life of the mother, I would say that would be, personally, I think that is a situation where it could be considered. I don't know if I agree with the situation of rape, I mean, that's a really tough one, but I've been sexually assaulted and I wouldn't have made that an excuse to then take another life. It's the burden we have as women. We create life and we're saddled with that once it's, been set in motion. So that's my opinion on it personally. Yeah, I mean, give the baby up for adoption if you don't want to see your assaulter's face, in that child. That's just my personal opinion on it. Incest, that's a whole nother ball game. I don't know. It's another life. So I think while it's not ideal, and I think it is a huge ask for a woman to keep a baby that she did not want through literal force. It's different, like, oh, she didn't want it, but she had consensual sex. I think that's a whole different thing than she didn't want it and it was non-consensual. But still, I think if we were raised with the mindset as women that we have this supreme responsibility to create life and hold life, and once we have created that life, it is no longer just our body. We're a vessel for another person as well, and you can't make a decision without affecting another life. If we were raised with that knowledge, it would change our opinion on these things and the way we create laws around this. So yeah, it's an intense topic, but I wanted to share a little video where Candace Owens talks about, she shows the clip of Chrissy Teigen talking about this, and she has very similar opinions to me. I think when you see what actually happens in abortion clinics, how they coerce women into this, they don't give them the full facts, and they're actually, like, in a lot of cases, either giving them a pill that then causes the baby to die of starvation, which is not a fun way to die, or they're literally ripped limb from limb, and if you watch under ultrasound, they fight back. I mean, it's very disturbing stuff. So I would say that it's not an ideal situation. I have friends that if they were to get pregnant, one friend specifically, if she were to get pregnant, it would kill her. She has had multiple heart transplants. She is not capable of carrying a baby. She can create, a child, but giving birth would risk her life. So I could see in that situation, well, it's like she should take every step to not get pregnant, and she does. But worst case scenario, something happens, it's a really tough call, because I mean, she could definitely die in that situation. Oh man, yeah. So it's a tough right. situation on that one. That's the one that I go back and forth on. But every other situation, I would say it's not okay. Anyway, so yeah, let's watch the video where Candace talks about it, and we got to jump a little bit in because this is like a long video, but there's a few minutes that I think are really interesting.
Do you happen to know where it is by any chance?
Yeah, so it's where it says Chrissy Teigen is glamorizing death. This whole part right there. So start, yeah, it jumps in pretty quickly, yeah.
Okay. All right.
So many moons ago, I read this book by author Rodney Stark. It was entitled How the West Was Won. It's really a great book. Excellent. You should read it. Anyways, there's a chapter in it where he talks about the Aztec civilization and the amount of child and just altogether human sacrifice that took place. And in this one section, he intimates this Harvard researcher, his name was David Carrasco, who was moved to actually write a book about the human sacrifice after he reviewed a ritual receptacle where the remains of 42 children laid, quote, as a messy remnant of a 15th century precious offering to the rain gods. So you can imagine that you're this Harvard researcher, you go down and you're looking at this and you're going, my goodness, they sacrificed children. All because they thought, yeah, well, if we do this, then for sure the gods will recognize that we're really good people and it will rain. Yeah, that is really barbaric. And I've started to realize this. somehow in our advanced society, we always look back on those things and we're shocked and we're surprised. And I think in our mindset is, we would never. How could the Aztecs have done this? Oh, you just should instinctively know that that is so wrong to sacrifice children. Us? No, we are civilized. We are so civilized. Except when you think about it, we actually do all the exact same things. We just use better technology. And I guess part of the technology is the psychology that comes along with it. We believe that because we use technology, we're not barbaric. We hold on to this belief that we're somehow more moral. And that idea was actually reinforced. If you guys listened to Friday's episode, I had on two guys who I really appreciate, both of them so much. I had on Ami Kozak and Dave Smith, and they were debating Israel versus Palestine. Riveting discussion. But then there was this point where Ami was talking about just how barbaric October 7th was, really talking about the savages and what they did to the Israelis. And by the way, point for him, absolutely, he's right. It was barbaric. But I was quite shocked when Dave Smith offered back, yeah, and what are they doing in response? The exact same thing. They're dropping bombs on innocent children and innocent women and innocent families, and you're killing them as a response. That is murder. And I think Ami was taken quite aback by that. Like, what do you mean it's murder? This is totally different. We're dropping bombs on homes. Again, we have some technology which makes what we're doing less barbaric than the people who parachuted in and did the same thing. Like, they killed innocent people. Mm-hmm. But of course, that topic has nothing to do with child sacrifice. We would go, okay, no. We would never, of course, sacrifice a child for something like rain. That seems crazy. Well, if you think that's crazy, you should listen to Chrissy Teigen. She would certainly like a word after something that she posted on Instagram over the weekend. Now, before I show you what she posted on Instagram, it's quite shocking what she said. We should just appreciate Chrissy Teigen as a brand in general, because I've never seen someone who is trying to brand being pro-death. That's what she's done, really. If you look at her career, if you look at really the collapse of her career, the hashtag that I started, Surviving Chrissy Teigen, when I realized this remarkable thread, Chrissy Teigen likes the concept of children and teenagers dying. This is why she notoriously was telling young women, teenagers at the time, to kill themselves. I'm not kidding, to kill themselves. I'm going to remind you of this tweet that she wrote about Lindsay Lohan. She wrote, Lindsay adds a few more slits to her wrists when she sees Emma Stone. Oh, how sweet. Totally normal for a full adult married woman to be writing that about Lindsay Lohan. But that wasn't it. It got worse, of course, on the topic of Courtney Stodden, who was another celebrity who got married when she was 15, and then she sort of had a reality TV show. Well, she wrote this to Courtney Stodden because apparently she liked to watch the TV show. My Friday fantasy at Courtney Stodden, you, a dirt nap. Baby. Yeah, dirt nap meaning buried beneath the ground, dead. Baby, she loves that. When Courtney Stodden was making the rounds and giving interviews and telling journalists that she wasn't just harassed publicly by Chrissy Teigen, she was also harassed privately by Chrissy Teigen. She said, quote, she wouldn't just publicly tweet about wanting me to take a dirt nap, but would privately DM me and tell me to kill myself. Things like, quote, I can't wait for you to die. I cannot tell you how extraordinary that is. Just thinking about a grown adult married woman feeling inspired to jump into the DMs of a teenager and encourage them to kill themselves. Of course, what if she had done it? What if Courtney Stodden had killed herself? What if Lindsay Lohan had slit her wrists? What if Bristow Palin, who was also bullied by Chrissy Teigen and spoke out about it, and she wasn't the only one. It was also Farrah Abraham who spoke out. What if any of these women felt compelled to harm themselves or to kill themselves because of the words of a A-list celebrity, which she was at the time, married to John Legend? Yeah, that's pretty dark and pretty grim. But anyways, Chrissy Teigen kind of left the public conscience. Actually, people got it right and condemned her when they started recognizing this trend that I had exposed. Well, guys, hold on to your horses because she ain't done yet. If you're wondering what moves Chrissy Teigen to tears, well, it's the concept of dead babies. Take a listen to what she posted onto her personal Instagram page.
hearing stories from your clinic, hearing that so many women come in there, and it's not a place of sadness all the time. It's not a place where people are feeling at their darkest points or anything like the world wants you to think. Some people go in there with so much hope and so much excitement because they know that they have a future. And so to see that so many people out there, and the stories that you shared at your clinic of people having so much hope and positivity and a new outlook on life, it doesn't have to be this place of darkness and scary. And the level of comfort I felt just being at your clinic was so incredible. But I started crying once I saw this beautiful mural of butterflies above the operating suite. And I took one look at it and my eyes filled with tears, and I looked over at Dr. Zoe, and she looked me in the eye and she said, "You could have had butterflies."
I'm just so disturbed. Wow. Please tell me. I know that there are plenty of people who follow me, young women who follow me, and you're not fully on the Candace train. You find this conversations that I start at least to be interesting.
All right.
Okay, so just to, we'll get back to that. There's a little bit more to watch, and then I have some more things to share, but I get being that brainwashed, and maybe it is being brainwashed. Let's just take the perspective that she is a totally innocent person and not part of a satanic Hollywood cult, which she most likely is. Well, let's just say she's a normal person, and she has bought into the lie, like many young women and older women have bought into, that abortion is something that is empowering and not harmful to other lives. That's just a bunch of zealots and crazy conservative people that think that. And really, they just hate women. It's not that they're defending babies because they're not babies. It's because they hate women. So let's just say that you have that perspective and you're that brainwashed. I could see, in her defense, I could see being moved by the fact that, well, there's that narrative of being like, well, now this woman has a future. She could have been burdened by this child that she didn't want, but now she has the opportunity to do what she wants. And that's a beautiful thing. And if that were reality, I could see being moved to tears by that, but it's not reality. I just hate the way the culture has put children in this position of a burden. Like, me and Justin can't wait to have kids. I can't imagine a child being a burden. That's a gift. Like we said earlier, I work with kids. I think it's incredible. I love kids. I can't get enough of being around their infectious energy. They're just like little bundles of pure love. They're so sweet. They're so unfiltered. They haven't been ruined yet by society. It's like the best form of humanity right there. So I just think it's really sick how we've, as a culture, have been taught to believe that children are a burden. Women should be encouraged to find freedom and hope and excitement by being able to get rid of that child that they have created. So yeah, let's go back to the video.
Well, yeah, I wanted to comment too, real quick, that the butterflies thing. Yeah. So butterflies, I would say symbolically often represent, just without even invoking occult symbolism, they often represent things like transformation, the caterpillar turning into the butterfly through the cocoon, these kind of things. And
they're taking the butterfly preemptively out of the cocoon.
It's exactly, yeah. So this is what's in the Planned Parenthood things. There's gobs of evidence to suggest that Planned Parenthood and abortion is some kind of secret occult ritual.
Right.
There's a book coming out right now with Eucadia called Maxims of Ecclesiastical Law, which gets into all sorts of strange occult things that have been woven into our society, like putting silver on a newborn baby's eyes, the silver iodide, as part of this occult ritual to claim their soul. So I definitely think there's stuff like that happening. And plus there's this thing called, I heard it referenced as the Monarch Monarch program. I don't know if that's actually the case, so caveat there. But supposedly when in trauma-based mind control, they use butterfly symbolism around the child who's getting brutally traumatized to cause a break in their mind so that then they will be ripe for programming butterflies. So it all kind of very interesting there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it reminded me of MK Ultra programming for sure. when you break down a lot of symbolism, you know, when you see like the one eye, that kind of thing, butterflies are very often used in that. So it was very interesting. Oh, and I described this as a talk show. She was actually at the White House with Kamala, so that was my bad for explaining. But that's where they're at. She is talking on behalf of celebrities, I guess, at the White House, probably in something that has to do with being against Roe v. Wade and trying to raise awareness. And so I'll just summarize the rest of what she says in the video. Basically, Candace goes on to say what I launched into when I started this piece, which is, you know, Candace used to have the opinion that most modern Americans do, that it's a clump of cells, didn't really realize that there is a life. These things are actually really brutal, the way that they're done. It's not an easy situation. I know many women that have gone down the route of getting abortions. One of my ex-boyfriends at the time, he had a close friend of his who was his roommate, and she's a really sweet gal, and her and her boyfriend had been together for a very long time, but she had some drug issues, and I don't think she was using at the time, but I know she was drinking a lot, and she had gotten pregnant, and so my boyfriend at the time helped her pay for her abortion. And I thought, wow, that's so honorable of him to have done that. Like, look, he's helping out his friend. And she sunk into a deep, deep depression afterwards. I've heard that that's a very common thing where women regret their abortion. And I don't know if it was a conscious regret. I think it was a spiritual depression, honestly. I think there's a part of her that knew what she was doing was wrong without consciously being aware of it. And then a month later, she got pregnant again. And my ex helped her pay for an abortion again. And it was one of those situations where I was like, okay, you know, this is sweet to help her out, but maybe next time you should tell her, like, hey, if I'm going to help you pay for this, you should be more careful next time because I can't really afford a third one, you know? And it's her responsibility anyways. I mean, I don't think either of them should be doing that, but regardless, the situation was what it was, and she went ahead and did that, and she never recovered from that second one. She slipped back down into heroin use. It was a really, really dark story. I see her on social media all the time, and she's still with the same man that she was with, and they're both really sweet, well-intending people, but it's just so awful to see what the guilt of those two acts have done to them. You know, instead of them going back into heroin use and slipping deeper into a alcohol-infused lifestyle, they could have had, you know, a beautiful child. Obviously not two, because pregnancy back to back within that 2 months, you know, like that, the second pregnancy wouldn't have happened if she hadn't had the first abortion, but they could have had a beautiful child that would be like 6 years old right now, and they would have gotten their stuff together, hopefully. But yeah, it's sad to see. So Candace goes on to talk about how this is a satanic practice, and it's a really hot take. I think you wouldn't hear that in mainstream media, but I agree. I think that it is very thinly veiled version of what the Aztecs did, which is to sacrifice children. If you've ever seen the movie, what was that movie that was the Christian like horror thriller where that demon had possessed the guy that was on death row?
Oh God.
It wasn't Insidious. It was
something like that. No,
it was one word. It was
yeah.
really catchy. It came out like a year or two ago. Mm-hmm. Awesome movie. We'll find the name later and post it. I'm sure some of you have heard of it or seen it, but basically this man is infested by a demon, and he's the man who is so the man is infested by a demon. He's on death row. Another man is there to determine whether he's actually mentally insane, and if he is mentally insane, he can't be put to death. And this is the day that he is going to be put to death. He's already been in trial. He's been in jail for a long time, and this guy who goes to interview him wants to believe that he is insane because he doesn't believe in demons. He doesn't believe in any of that. But there's so many real and convincing things that makes him think, wow, this guy might actually be possessed by a demon. And for the sake of the story, he was possessed by a demon. And during this interview, the man who was interviewing him, the psychologist, the therapist, had his girlfriend going through an abortion at that very moment. And the demon is describing how that baby is being put into his hands, like put at the altar of him, being killed at the altar of him, and the man tries to stop the abortion, but he doesn't make it in time via contacting his girlfriend. And so, not that that's like proof evidence, but it's very compelling, very moving. I think this world is a lot darker than we think, and I think there are a lot of satanic influences, especially in Hollywood, especially like Epstein, that whole thing, Obama's pizza parties, all of that. I think the world is a lot darker than it appears on first glance. And so Candace goes to say that she thinks that this is satanic and that Chrissy Teigen is unknowingly, possibly, maybe knowingly, participating and encouraging something that is not Christian, is not right. And I tend to agree with her. And I think what's so interesting is that Chrissy Teigen lied about her own abortion in 2020. And so that's the other part of the story that I wanted to talk about. I sent you some links, but in 2020, her and her husband had gotten pregnant, and she claimed at the time that that she went through a horrible miscarriage, that she was coming home from the hospital without the baby, and she was so heartbroken, and all of these things, parading this lie for 1 to 2 years that she had lost the child against her will, but then later comes out after Roe v. Wade is renounced, saying that she got an abortion, and she came forward about the truth that it was an abortion because she wanted to support women that, that were going to face losing the access to abortions because of the Roe v. Wade poll. So I'll just scroll here a little bit. So this is Chrissy Teigen shares news of loss of baby and heartbreaking Instagram posts. So she announces that she lost her baby. She was hospitalized due to excessive bleeding. We are shocked and in a kind of deep pain you only hear about, the kind of pain we've never felt before. We were never able to stop bleeding and give our baby the fluids he needed. Despite bags and bags of blood transfusions, it just wasn't enough. We never decide on our baby's name until the last possible moment after they're born, but just before we leave the hospital. But for some reason, we had started calling this little guy in my belly Jack. So he'll always be Jack to us. Jack worked so hard to be a part of our little family, and he will be forever. To Jack, I'm so sorry that the first moments of your life were met with so many complications. We couldn't give you the home you needed to survive. We will always love you. So all of that is an outright lie.
Wow.
She aborted the child. None of that is true. I mean, sure, maybe the baby wasn't going to survive, but the fact is not that, if Jack had a few moments of life outside of her womb, that means they intentionally killed the child if it was what they were calling an abortion. But most likely Jack had never made it out of the womb, and she electively had an abortion before he could die of his own natural causes. So it's pretty twisted, and it's pretty gross. And I remember back when this had happened that people were talking about, because there was so much negative stuff about Chrissy Teigen in 2020, talking about how, her losing a baby in the womb is probably a satanic ritual to get themselves up higher along the internal hierarchy of all this dark stuff that they do, only to find out they did intentionally kill the child. So that's pretty crazy. Wow. And the fact that she's given it a name, she's talking about it as its own person, and now she's in the media saying, I'm glad that we chose to have an abortion. So she knows that this is a real baby. She's not saying it's a clump of cells. She's saying it's a baby, and she willingly killed it. So this is what had happened back then. Here's the photo of her that went along with those words that we had just said. So they were expecting the third child. She was put on bed rest. Driving home from the hospital now with no baby. How can this be real? We love you, Jack, from the husband. So everyone put out a lot of support for her, and they then went on to have another baby afterwards, I think via surrogate. But here is the next. If I click over, will that go to the next one?
Well, I'll have to share it for you.
Okay.
So go ahead.
Okay, so then here is the story sharing the fact that she actually had an abortion, and that she did it to save her own life for a baby that had absolutely no chance. So it's a big change of narrative. It's pretty shocking. Mm-hmm. So here is the original post of the "we're in the deep kind of pain," all of that. And here is the written article So it said it took her over a year to realize that she'd had an abortion. What does that mean? How do you not know that you had an abortion? Like, did she actually have an abortion, or is she just changing the story so that she can be part of the abortion crew and be used as this pro-choice puppet celebrity? Maybe she did actually lose the child, and now she's lying about having an abortion. Or maybe she did have an abortion and lied about having a miscarriage. Either way, it's pretty shady.
It seems pretty conscious, too. Like, it's not like it slipped her mind or there was any confusion. She, like, knowingly engaged in a deception.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So she said it took her over a year to realize that she'd had an abortion. 2 years ago when I was pregnant with Jack, John and my third child, I had to make a lot of difficult and heartbreaking decisions. It became very clear around halfway through that he would not survive and that I wouldn't either without any medical intervention. Let's call it what it was. It was an abortion. An abortion to save my life for a baby that had absolutely no chance. And to be honest, I never put any of that together until actually a few months ago. And so here's her post. I told you all we had a miscarriage because I thought that's what it was, but it was an abortion. We're heartbroken and grateful all at once. It just took me over a year to realize it.
So was it like, is she calling what was a miscarriage like an abortion, do you think? Or do you think she actually had an abortion? She was just lying about it? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I'm confused, to be honest. How do you say, oh, it was actually an abortion and you hadn't realized it? I mean, you went into the hospital and the baby's dying, and if the baby keeps losing and hemorrhaging blood, then you're gonna die too. Okay, that makes sense. And so then they elect to abort the child. And that is one of those situations that I talked about where, I mean, if it means the life of the mother, it's a very, very dicey situation. But to lie and to say that you had lost the baby and it was a miscarriage and the baby had died of its own, natural causes, and then the baby left the body after that, because I'm pretty sure what happens is that there is, after a certain point in the pregnancy, it's a miscarriage where the baby actually has to, either way, the baby has to leave the uterus through a stillbirth kind of situation if it dies within the womb. So there's the kind where you lose it up until I think the first 12 weeks or something like that, where it's not called a miscarriage, it's called something else. And so the baby technically dies, it was not a viable child, and the baby has passed. So after a certain point, it's a miscarriage, which means that if she aborted this child, it was much, much older and much larger than your typical abortion. So this is more of those late stage abortions too in this situation, which is pretty crazy. I agree with what Cicely says. Despicable, her photo op. Yeah, it seems very staged. It's pretty gross.
Yeah. Okay, so you want to go back to the...
Let's go back to that where she's talking about how she realized after Roe v. Wade. So her and her husband were discussing the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade earlier this year, and she said that she expressed sympathy towards people that had an abortion, and legend helped her realize that she'd gone through the same thing. I felt silent, feeling weird that I hadn't made sense of it that way. I told the world we had a miscarriage. The world agreed we had a miscarriage. All the headlines said it was a miscarriage. And I became really frustrated that I didn't in the first place say what it was. I felt silly that it had taken me over a year to actually understand that we had an abortion. And, so it's pretty intense. It all just seems so staged. Either way, it doesn't play well to her character. The fact that she never names any of her children, but then this one she names almost for the sake of media attention is kind of what it seems like is happening. She says it's a miscarriage so that she can elicit a lot of sympathy, which is very much like a loosh collecting style of activity. But then in reality she had an abortion, and now she conveniently has an abortion for more publicity so that she can now be used with Kamala Harris to promote why people need abortions. It's pretty despicable. I think that's all I had. Oh, there was one more article I had sent you, which... This
one?
The first one, the Evie magazine one. Okay. So this is another summary of what she had said with the how women going to abortion clinics have so much hope and excitement. It's another kind of summary the way that Candace Owens had summarized it. But what I find really interesting in this article, and this is Evie magazine for my ladies out there, you should look up this magazine. It's amazing. It's like a fashion, lifestyle, culture magazine, but from the perspective of non-insanity, which is amazing. They talk about a lot of pro-family things. They talk about a lot of health and natural things. They are really, really, really cool magazine. Definitely worth subscribing to. I love them. I get the best stuff from them. And down lower in the article, they have this compilation where they show women and their posts. It was some thread that they had taken it from where they talk about their abortion regret. And so this is from Evie's actual X profile. And they talk about how abortion regret is real because nobody talks about that. They talk about how it's given them a second chance on life. It's so empowering. But this is a compilation of women that regretted their abortion and them talking about it and the effect it had on them. So I just wanted to play that.
Okay.
It goes by pretty quick, so we can pause it a few times and read some of them. So that one says, I wanted my baby so badly, but the father wouldn't allow it.
I had to make a decision that wasn't even my first choice. You're not alone, babies.
Okay.
All right. Let's go to another one. Literally my life, the pain, the guilt, the trauma that follows for years after is something you can only comprehend if you've lived it. So sorry, I'm so sorry as I look at the pictures still. And no kidding. My ex forced me to get an abortion 2 years ago, and now my daughter is due that same day this year. I've been so upset since I had it, but I didn't. I had it, but I didn't. Okay, I'm not sure what that means, but let's do a couple more. Here we go. I wanted mine as well, but I had to say, because my mother made me get an abortion. I've been trying. It's been a year and nothing still. So she's having a hard time getting pregnant. Something I've also heard. Everybody tells me you still did it. I didn't mean to. I didn't want to. So.
And let's just play from the top because when you see all of these back to back, it's pretty profound. Very intense. So, just to wrap everything up, I do think that women are tricked into this kind of thing, or they're forced. Like Justin had said, we know some people that were forced to have an abortion by their parents at a very young age, and have not been able to conceive since then, and now they're getting past their window of opportunity where they might not ever be able to conceive. They might not ever be able to have children, and that's a tragedy. And what is worse? Having a child in high school or never having one altogether. I mean, it's pretty intense to think about.
Right.
And my heart goes out to people like that. It's so intense. So, Chrissy Teigen is creepy, to say the least. Abortion is not ideal. If you have any questions about that or on the fence about it, I totally understand. Look into what happens during an abortion, and there are many, many videos, especially on Instagram, from pro-life groups that show exactly what it takes to cause an abortion, where they have to pull the baby apart limb from limb.
Yeah.
The baby fights back. There's just so many things. It's disgusting. And then the fact that Planned Parenthood sells the body parts it's just so telling. Those cells are then being used to create flavors that then go into your chocolate bars. I mean, it's just so disgusting how all of this wraps together. Our society is sick. And yeah, I hope that those that see that interview with her maybe think twice about the reaction, don't buy into the narrative, and do some research for themselves. I know that's a big ask these days from people that aren't already prone to doing their research, but I think it's important, and I will pray for Chrissy Teigen.
Definitely. Absolutely. And I wanted to mention those books, Spiritual Midwifery, because there's so much. I think I mentioned it as a book of the month at one point, but let me just make sure I got the right page. There we go. So this book has a lot of very interesting information, and one of the things that's interesting is that they talk about all these stories where women in this is like in the 70s, this compound in the 70s where women are trying to have children, and one of the things they notice is that when the man isn't present who helped create the baby and there's not a good bond of safety, then it's actually harder for the woman to have the child. And so it occurred to me when it comes to, this topic of abortion, that perhaps what's going on is that the psychological wound that is created from the abortion creates kind of like a persistent PTSD trauma where the woman never actually feels safe enough, and then that literally hampers her ability to have children because there's so much that plays into that what's-her-face talks about, Women's Health, Women's Way, or whatever the book is called.
Oh, Dr. Christine Northrup.
Right. So
Who is
this is a
based-
fantastic book.
Yeah, the book is amazing. And Woman's Bodies, Woman's Way is another amazing book. She's a doctor that was, she's a female OBGYN, and she came out about being anti-vax during COVID, and she is very based. If you need any women's health advice, look her up. She's awesome. And yeah, so anyways, I thought that was relevant because that interview just came out. Super creepy. Definitely an important topic.
Yeah, if you guys want to check out the Spiritual Midwifery book, I'm going to pop it in the chat. It's really good. We've been doing all sorts of research and preparation for our family. And there's so much wisdom packed into so many different things that don't often get attention. So we actually had a different book of the month, but I'm going to just go ahead and say that's going to be the book of the month this month. And yeah, so guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Appreciate all the prayers and support for Ryan. He definitely sends his love and well wishes. He'll be back as soon as he can. Obviously, he's trying to deal with a pretty crazy situation. We pray for his mother to get well soon, hopefully, or, whatever needs to happen there. And with that, thank you so much, Ascent Nutrition, for supporting the show, and we'll see you next time on Vigilant News. Much love and take care, everybody.